Don't we live in a society where we're supposed to start appreciating and catering towards someone's mental health? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Hard Foul Radio. Appreciate you for tuning in today. This is the show that values time, so let's not waste any. So for the first time in the history of Hard Foul, we're going to start with two Jacksonville Jaguar stories. Well, we'll see how this goes. So the first one, and these aren't shit that just happened yesterday. This isn't breaking news. This is stuff that's been going on. I've seen more and more stuff starting and to see more people starting to talk about it, and I thought it was really stupid. So Trevor Lawrence, there's an article that came out before he got drafted, and it was Trevor Lawrence, the generational prospect who's out to prove nothing. And so the story basically goes that Trevor Lawrence came out and said, you know what, I've got a good home life. I'm engaged to my high school sweetheart. I've got all these really positive things in my life that even if football doesn't work out, it's not going to break me. I don't have to prove that I'm great by being great at football. I've already proven that I can be great at life, that I have made a good life for myself. I'll be okay even if I don't turn into the greatest NFL player ever. Now, obviously, this was written before the draft, and Trevor Lawrence is just such a once-in-a-lifetime prospect. Like, it didn't deter the Jags from going, oh, well, maybe he shouldn't be the number one pick. He's just too talented. He's that great of a prospect. He was going there anyway. But it did make people stupidly say, well, does he care enough about the game? Obviously, I'm on record of saying I'm a fan of people that are a little more psychopathic, essentially, about the sports or activities they take really passionate. People that put in a over-the-top amount of time and are almost, just wired differently, right? People that are wired differently, people that are hyper-obsessive. Big fan of, obviously, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. Lil Wayne when it comes to music. Even a fan of Tom Brady's work ethic and the way that he's carried himself. Guys are just over the top. But that doesn't mean it's, A, the only way to do it, or B, don't mean it's healthy. I've been someone who's been very obsessive about my work before. I was so obsessive about my work, I was the guy who would go on social media and talk shit about people. Oh, you're taking naps and you're resting too much and you're not grinding as hard as you can. It don't matter. You don't need to be like that. It doesn't make you cool. It doesn't make you better than the guy next to you. On that same note, if you want to be the guy like Tom Brady, who's obsessive and puts in more hours than you probably healthily should into this game, fine, do you. If that's how you feel, you need to be successful. But the idea that Trevor Lawrence can look casual, and this got brought up again after his preseason debut where it was an okay debut. I believe it was went 7 of 11 for like 70 yards. And it was an okay debut. It's a preseason game, right? And people thought, oh, well, he didn't look great, or he didn't look like the generational prospect, or he looked too casual. If football's not his, I'm living on this, and this is my sole purpose for life, that's okay. Don't we live in a society where we're supposed to start appreciating and catering towards someone's mental health? Do we not live in a society, we've seen the NFL guys who have had the CTE cases come up over the last 15 to 20 years, really, well, longer than that, but we've highlighted them more the last 15 to 20 years. And what are a lot of the CTE cases from? Guys who are hyper obsessive about the sport. Now, of course, anyone who plays is subject to these injuries, but the guys who are going over the top, they're there at every practice, they're practicing extra, they're going extra in the games. These are a lot of the guys we've seen who are more likely to suffer from these things. Trevor Lawrence is treating the NFL as he should, which is a job. And no one should feel like their value is solely entitled up into a job. It's okay to not be an obsessive maniac about your job. It's okay to have to enjoy your life outside of your career, no matter what your career is. And just because there's some crazy toxic fans who put way too much more of their own time into this, it's not Trevor Lawrence's responsibility. Second story, and I've avoided talking about this all week, but it's Friday. Let's have some fun with it. Tim Tebow is officially released this week.
No! God, please, no! No!
And everybody went on TV and said, he wasn't an NFL player. He wasn't an NFL player back then. He wasn't this. He wasn't that. He deserved to be cut. Someone else should get the chance. Blah, 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 blah. I don't give a fuck. let's hit the cliches out of the way, right? Why did Tim Tebow get a chance? Well, obviously he got a chance because Urban Meyer's the head coach. They have a relationship. And what's the other reason he got a chance? Well, there's the business side of it, which is you get 85, 86 players during this time period before you got to cut down to 50-something. And Tim Tebow, by far and away, is the most profitable 86th, 85th person on a roster. I mean, he was leading the league in merchandise the week he came back. But from my perspective, what Tim Tebow means is Tim Tebow, to this day, and I've seen Denver win a Super Bowl, Tim Tebow represents maybe the most fun I've ever had watching football. And I don't use that statement lightly, and I don't think that statement is an exaggeration. I don't think it's a prisoner of the moment, because 10 years ago now is when Tebow played for Denver. What he did during that run, you have to realize how miserable it was to be a Broncos fan at that point in time. You're coming off 6-0, don't make the playoffs. You're coming off the Josh McDaniels, whatever you want to call it, at the end. And you're told as a fan, all right, now we have Kyle Orton. Okay, so Kyle Orton's there. Obviously, you have the meltdown. And you start the season, they're 1-4. And you're like, okay. And then you're playing the Chargers, and as a Bronco fan in San Diego, it's miserable every time the Chargers win. At least every time they beat Denver. It was just a miserable time to be a Broncos fan. And then Tebow comes in during the Chargers game, scores 2 touchdowns. After your offense had been stagnant for how many quarters, gave you life. But that didn't start the streak, because they played the Lions and got smacked. Remember, the Lions players all came out and said, man, this dude can't throw, this dude is trash, this dude blah, 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 blah. Then the streak happens. And I don't want to hear about Marion Barber going out of bounds. And I don't want to hear about completing 2 passes and beating Kansas City. And I don't want to hear about he was 46% completion. I don't want to hear about nothing. They needed Matt Prater to the defense. Because even if all of that is true, when your team is 1-4, when your team is coming off 6-0, don't make the playoffs, and then all these wins start stacking up, I've said so many times, all fans really want is hope. Fans, as crazy as they are, don't expect a Super Bowl every year, unless you're a fan of Tom Brady. Fans don't expect you to be 16-0 every year. They just want hope. They want to be competitive. They don't want to turn on a game and their team's down 30 points. Tebow was hope in 2011 for the Broncos, to the point of they won a playoff game, and I've still never had a moment that has quite resonated with me more so than Tim Tebow to Demaryius Thomas in overtime to beat the Steelers. Screamed so loud, it scared my grandmother, scared my neighbors, scared everyone that was in a vicinity that could hear me. Tebow was hope. Tebow was cool. Never got another chance, and that sucks. Now, as an adult, can I understand that? Yeah. Still sucks. But for everybody that wants to rip Tebow, everybody that wants to say, oh, well, he didn't deserve the chance, he wasn't this, blah, 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 blah. So all I can say is thanks. I appreciate what you did for my team at a time when they needed it. I'm not saying what Tim Tebow did for Denver is what Peyton Manning did for Denver. I'm not saying what Tim Tebow did for Denver is what Lamar Jackson's currently doing for Baltimore, what Josh Allen's doing for Buffalo. But not everybody needs to be that. Not everybody needs to be Peyton Manning. Not everyone needs to be Lamar Jackson. Not everyone needs to be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. It's okay. We can appreciate moments in your life even if they're not forever. And Tim Tebow is a moment in my life that I will always appreciate. So once again, thank you, Tim.